So, we know that video game consoles are expensive today, right? I think we can all agree on that. But have you ever wondered what it was like to buy them in the 70s, 80s, and 90s and early 2000s? Well, we're going to take a trip back to those times and see what it was like to buy a console then compared to now. The prices and release dates that I will be showing you will all be from the United States, as well as the wages around that time. So let's start with the Atari 2600 that launched in 1977 at $200. Back then, the minimum wage in the US was only $2.30. Now, in today's dollars, that console would be around $1,020 in 2025. Now, I have never owned or even played a real Atari, but I must say, I have emulated the console, and for what I've played, the console is trash. I mean, that was way too expensive for that crap, and you Atari fanboys, you can come for me in the comments. Now let's move into the 80s. The minimum wage then increased to $3.35. In 1980, we got the Intellivision at $300. In today's dollars, that would be $1,193. 2 years later came ColecoVision in 1982 at $175. That's around $564 in today's dollars. Also in 82, we got Atari 5200 at $269. That will be around $864 today. Now, once again, I have never owned or played any of these consoles. I mean, I wasn't even born until 1988, but these consoles were way too expensive back then. And honestly, once again, disagree with me if you like, but these consoles were trash. I would even say that owning a console back then was like having a luxury item, and they didn't even match the graphics or the experience that you could get by going to the arcades. But in 1983, we got some hope, a actual good console, and actually my first console I ever owned years later, of course, this being the NES that sold for $150. Or you could get a bundle that came with Super Mario and Duck Hunt for $200. In today's money, this would be $430 for the console and $530 for the bundle. Now let's fast forward all the way to 1988. Yes, the year I was born, we got my second console that I owned, once again, years later of course, that being the Sega Genesis for $189. And the console came with the first Sonic the Hedgehog game. In today's dollars, this would be around $485. Now when it came to handhelds, they were somewhat affordable. The Game Boy, released in 1989, cost just $90. That's about $225 today, a lot cheaper than home consoles. But the Game Gear, released in 1991, was more expensive at $150, which now I understand why it didn't sell well and couldn't compete with Game Boy. In today's money, that's around $350. Now let's move into the 90s, where once again the minimum wage increased, this time to around $5.15. And in 1990 came the Neo Geo at a whopping $650. That's about $1,500 today. Now whoever bought this console had to be one of two things, either rich or crazy. Now the Super Nintendo was a great console, even though at this time I was Team Sega. The SNES was released in 1991 at $200. That's around $459 today. Now if you thought the Neo Geo was expensive, here's another one. In 1993, we got the release of the 3DO. It launched at $700. I gotta repeat that, hold on. I said $700. That's around $1,550 in today's money. Now that's insane. God damn. Then we got the Sega Saturn in 1995 for $400, around $838 in today's money, and the PlayStation also released in 1995 for $100 less at $300, around $613 today. Nintendo followed up with the Nintendo 64 in 1996 at $200. That's about $397 today. The last system of the 90s and the last system for Sega period was the Dreamcast in 1999 that launched at $200 and would also be around $397 today. Now let's move into the early 2000s, and around this time the minimum wage was the same as it was in the 90s, around $5.15. 2000 was a great year. It gave me my favorite console of all time, that being the PlayStation 2 that launched at $300, which would be around $556 today. But for the PlayStation 2, this was a great deal back then because the PlayStation 2 came with a built-in DVD player, and DVD players were selling for around $600 in 2000. So it would make more sense to just pick up a PlayStation 2 instead. The next year, 2001, we got the original Xbox at $300. That's around $535 today. Shout out to all my OG Halo fans. And in that same year, we got the GameCube for $200. That will be around $361 today. Now I know I have been skipping the handhelds and really only focusing on the consoles, so let me give you three big ones. The Game Boy Advance, released in 2001 for $100. Now that was a pretty good deal. In today's dollars, that's around $175. The Nintendo DS, released in 2004 for $150. That's around about $246 today. And the last handheld I'm gonna mention is the PSP that launched in 2005 for $250. That's around about $406 today. Okay, I'm gonna do one more generation of consoles. The Xbox 360, launched in 2005, had two different consoles, a core system at $300 and a premium system for $400. Today, that premium system would be around $644. The PlayStation 3 launched with two different versions in 2006 as well. A 20GB version that was $600 and a 60GB version that was $500. That 20GB version in today's money is around $934. And the last console I'm going to mention in this video is the Nintendo Wii, released in 2006 for $250, which would cost you around $374 in today's money. So looking at all of the numbers, I think we can say that console prices have never been cheap when comparing them to the person's income of the year the console was released. And Lord help the guys and girls who were buying Neo Geos and 3DOs back then. Those were the real champs. Now today in 2025, things have changed. Back in the day when a console got older, the price would drop. Now the prices are actually increasing. For example, the Switch 1 just got a $40 price increase. The Xbox Series X got a $100 price increase. And this is due to tariffs and hardware costs. Now, like I said, we have never seen this before. So what does all of this mean for the future of consoles? Are they gonna get cheaper? Are they gonna get higher? Well, I don't know. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say they're gonna get higher. Technology's only gonna get better. Hardware is going to get better, and what comes with better? Higher prices. Who has to pay for it? Us. Will we pay for it? Yes, because we always want the newest thing. Not the best, but the newest. Now, next time someone comes to you and says, man, the Switch 2 is expensive, or when the PS6 drops, oh man, these consoles are just expensive. Just remember that consoles have always been expensive.